In the heart of Milan, Patricia Reeves faces a crushing blow. The doors of an elite boutique, Aurora, slam shut before her, all because her modest navy sweater and faded sneakers don't match its luxurious image. Stung by rejection, she never imagines her son, Keanu Reeves, will turn her pain into power, buying the very place that shunned her to redefine luxury for everyone. Have you ever been judged unfairly by how you look, or fought back against it? Drop a 1 in the comments if it's happened to you, or a 2 if you've stood up for what's right. Where are you watching this story from? Your living room, a cafe, or somewhere across the globe? If this tale of resilience and redemption speaks to you, subscribe to Motivation for Success for more stories that inspire action and heart. Let's step back to where it all begins, a crisp early spring afternoon in Milan, where Patricia, dressed simply yet carrying a lifetime of strength, approaches Aurora, a boutique of grandeur that's about to become the spark of an extraordinary transformation. On a chilled spring afternoon in Milan, Patricia Reeves ventured out with a fragile hope cradled in her chest, a belated birthday gift to herself after a lifetime of surrender and toil. For decades, she had poured her spirit into her family, stitching together an existence from threads of sacrifice, her hands worn by relentless work, her heart anchored by an unyielding devotion. She had weathered storms that would have broken lesser souls, yet luxury, true, tangible beauty had always remained a distant dream, an indulgence she never dared imagine for someone forged in struggle. Today, though, she allowed herself to reach for it. Dressed in a navy sweater softened by years of wear, modest slacks, and sneakers faded to a whisper of their former color, she stepped into the vibrant hum of Milan streets, a quiet figure against a city pulsing with extravagance. Her journey led her to Aurora, a boutique that stood as a monument to wealth, its sleek lines and lavish interiors a testament to a world she had never inhabited. It was a place whispered about in reverent tones, its exclusivity a fortress guarded by unspoken rules. At its threshold loomed Dante, the doorman, his impeccable suit a sharp contrast to the lives he judged with a single glance. As Patricia approached, her simple attire told no tales of the richness within her, the countless nights she'd gone without so others could have more, the resilience that had carried her through despair, the dignity she wore like an invisible crown. To Dante, she was merely a mismatch, a humble silhouette eclipsed by the boutique's glittering facade. Before she could even speak, he intercepted her with a smile that held no warmth, his voice a blade wrapped in courtesy. "I'm sorry, madam, but we're hosting a private event today. Only invited guests may enter." The words were final, delivered without pause or compassion, and with a practiced step, he closed the heavy door, sealing her out. In that instant, Patricia's breath caught, her dream unraveling like thread pulled too tight. The rejection pierced deeper than she could have anticipated, not just a refusal of entry, but a dismissal of her very being, a judgment that stripped away the decades of grace she'd cultivated. She turned away, her chest heavy with the weight of a society that prized polished surfaces over the depth of a soul. Tears gathered in her eyes, spilling quietly as a soft rain began to fall, each drop a tender echo of her muted grief. The drizzle cloaked her in its gentle embrace, a mirror to the sorrow she carried, a woman who had learned, through years of quiet endurance, that the world often gazes no further than the skin it sees, blind to the luminous spirit beneath. In that fleeting moment, beneath the rain's whisper, Patricia stood as both a casualty of shallow eyes and a testament to a strength they could never fathom, her heart bruised yet unbroken, her story only just beginning to unfold. That evening, as Milan's vibrant streets faded into a distant hum, Patricia Reeves sat alone in the quiet sanctuary of a modest hotel room, her silhouette framed against a window streaked with rain. The city's neon lights flickered beyond the glass, their glow softened into a hazy blur, a stark contrast to the sharp ache she carried within. With trembling fingers, she reached for her phone and dialed her son, Keanu Reeves, a man whose steady calm, boundless compassion, and piercing insight into the human soul had long been her pride. His voice, warm and immediate, met her on the other end, a lifeline in the dimness of her solitude. "Keanu, it's Mom," she whispered, her words quivering with a vulnerability she rarely allowed to surface. "Something happened today at Aurora. They turned me away because I didn't look the part. My clothes weren't luxurious enough, and they made it clear I didn't belong." Each syllable carried the weight of the day's wound, a quiet unraveling of a woman who had spent her life building walls of resilience, only to find them breached by a single, cold dismissal. Across the miles, Keanu listened, his heart tightening with every faltering note in her voice. Her story summoned a torrent of memories, images of a mother who had faced down life's tempests with unbowed grace, who had woven lessons of worth into his very being. He could still hear her voice from years past, firm yet tender. "True value lies in your strength, your kindness, not in the cost of what you wear." Those words had been his compass, guiding him through a world often dazzled by shallow glitter. Now, hearing her pain, they roared back to life, igniting a fire within him. In the stillness of that night, as her words lingered like an echo in his chest, Keanu felt more than sorrow. He felt a call to battle. This was no fleeting hurt to be brushed aside, no minor slight to fade with time. His mother's rejection was a mirror held up to a society that too eagerly weighed worth by outward sheen, discarding the richness of the spirit beneath. It was a wound that demanded more than sympathy. It demanded justice, a reckoning. Rooted in the truths she had planted in him as a child, that a person's essence, not their possessions, defines them, Keanu made a silent, unshakable vow. He would not let her suffering dissolve into the shadows of indifference. This moment, raw and piercing, would be the spark of something greater, a bold stand against a world in desperate need of awakening. As the rain tapped against the windowpane, a rhythm to her muted grief, Keanu's resolve took root, a son's love fusing with a determination to turn his mother's quiet tears into a thunderous call for change. In the days that stretched out after his mother's call, Keanu Reeves plunged into a relentless pursuit of truth, his every step fueled by a quiet fury and a son's unwavering love. He sought out financial advisors whose calculators hummed with possibility, legal experts whose minds mapped the boundaries of power, and industry insiders who whispered secrets of Milan's gilded world, all to unearth the reality behind Aurora, the boutique that had dared to scorn Patricia Reeves. What he discovered was a bitter revelation that cut deeper than the rejection itself. Beneath its shimmering exterior, Aurora thrived on a hidden creed, a cold calculus that weighed its patrons not by the strength of their character or the depth of their hearts, but by the flash of their wealth and the cut of their clothes. It was a truth that laid bare the hollowness of its glamour, a fortress of exclusivity built on the fragile foundation of appearances. To Keanu, this was no mere transaction, no idle business venture to be ticked off a list. It was a crusade, a burning mission etched into his soul by the memory of his mother's trembling voice. He saw beyond Aurora's polished walls a vision of what it could become, not a shrine to shallow opulence, but a sanctuary where respect reigned, where every soul, no matter how humbly clad, could stand tall and feel the weight of their inherent worth. He dreamed of a place where dignity wasn't a privilege to be purchased, but a right freely given, a quiet rebellion against the world that had wounded his mother. With a determination that rippled through even those who knew him best, startling them with its intensity, he set his plan into motion, a bold gambit to claim Aurora and rewrite its story. In the span of mere weeks, shielded from the glare of a curious press, Keanu and his trusted circle wove a web of discreet negotiations, their moves precise and unyielding. They secured the boutique's purchase, a seismic shift executed in the shadows, its echoes soon to reverberate through Milan's elite corridors. When word slipped out, it met a tide of disbelief. Skeptics raised brows, doubters murmured, but Keanu stood resolute, his gaze fixed on a horizon they couldn't yet see. His purpose was crystalline, to resurrect Aurora as Aurora reborn, a haven of luxury redefined, where compassion would replace condescension, where every individual's value would be honored not by their wallet, but by their humanity. This was no fleeting whim, it was a pledge to his mother's spirit, a testament to the lessons she'd sown in him that true richness lies in the grace we extend to one another. As the ink dried on the deal, Keanu's heart beat with the certainty that this was only the beginning, a first step toward a legacy that would outshine the boutique's former sheen with the quiet, enduring light of inclusion. The rebirth of Aurora unfolded as a quiet revolution, its essence reshaped not just in brick and mortar but in the very ideals it would now uphold. On a cool Milan evening, the grand reopening beckoned, a moment laden with promise. The boutique's once stern facade softened under a new vision, a sweep of elegant red carpet unfurled at the entrance, a warm invitation where cold exclusion once stood, while bold banners stretched overhead, their words blazing in defiance. True luxury is respect. Inside, the space shed its former elitism, its lavish edges smoothed into an embrace of warmth and belonging, a sanctuary crafted not for the privileged few but for the heartbeat of a community yearning to connect. At the evening's core stood a stage, a simple platform poised to bear a profound message. The crowd gathered, a tapestry of lives woven together, Milan's glittering socialites brushing shoulders with ordinary souls who bore the scars of being unseen in a world that worshipped wealth. A current of anticipation pulsed through them, electric and fragile, as those who had once shrunk beneath the weight of rejection stepped forward, their eyes alight with tentative hope. This was no longer a shrine to opulence alone, it whispered of something deeper, something human. As the lights dipped low, a reverent silence settled over the assembly. Keanu Reeves ascended the stage, his presence a steady anchor, radiating a quiet power that needed no fanfare. Beside him emerged Patricia Reeves, her figure a testament to a life carved by struggle and grace. She wore a simple yet striking ensemble, its understated elegance a mirror to her journey, threads of hardship woven with the poise of a woman who had never let the world define her. Her steps carried the weight of years, each one a quiet proclamation of her enduring strength. Keanu's voice rose, clear and unwavering, cutting through the stillness. Tonight, we gather not to exalt wealth or rank, but to lift up a truth my mother planted in me long ago, that a person's worth lies in their kindness, their resilience, the love they give. Patricia Reeves, my mother, has borne burdens most could never fathom. Today, we don't just remake a building, we redefine what luxury must become. His words landed like a stone in still water, rippling outward, stirring the crowd into a swell of applause. Tears glistened in the eyes of many, moved not by spectacle but by the raw honesty of a son honoring his mother's quiet valor. This was no mere rebranding, it was a gauntlet thrown at a system that had long trampled those who didn't gleam with its narrow gold. He pressed on, unveiling the Aurora Compassion Project, a bold vow to channel a share of every sale into the lives of the overlooked underprivileged families, lone parents, and the unsung pillars of society, teachers, nurses, first responders. Then came the Community Collection, a line of exclusive pieces priced not for profit but for purpose, reserved for those who pour their lives into serving others. In that moment, Aurora Reborn stood not just as a store, but as a beacon, its light a call to a world too long blinded by shallow measures, now dared to see the beauty of the human soul. Aurora Reborn transcended its walls, blossoming into a quiet force that reshaped lives and stirred souls. In the weeks after its unveiling, the boutique became a refuge for those who had long drifted unseen through a world that prized polish over substance. People once turned away at its doors dismissed for their lack of luster now crossed its threshold with heads held high, their voices alive with tales of respect finally granted, a dignity they'd been denied too long. The transformation rippled inward too, touching the very heart of its staff. Dante, the doorman whose curt words had once barred Patricia, stood at the forefront of this shift. Retrained with a focus on empathy, he shed the armor of his old judgments, learning to see beyond the surface he'd once guarded so fiercely. In a training session that hushed his colleagues, Dante's voice broke with raw honesty. I used to think my role was to sift the worthy from the unworthy, to guard this place like a gatekeeper. Now I know it's about opening doors, hearing stories, making every person feel they matter. His confession, tender and unguarded, struck a chord, igniting a cultural sea change within Aurora's walls. Employees were urged to peel back their own layers, to recount moments they'd judged or been judged, and to wrestle with the truth that dignity isn't a gift to bestow, it's a birthright to uphold. Together, they forged a new ethos, one where every glance and gesture carried the weight of respect. Word of Aurora Reborn's quiet revolution spread, a whisper that grew into a global chorus. Beyond Milan, media voices amplified the tale of Patricia Reeves and her son's audacious stand, igniting debates about what luxury truly means. Skeptics sneered, branding it a hollow stunt, but their doubts drowned beneath a flood of stories from lives touched by this new dawn. A schoolteacher, her eyes brimming, spoke of stepping into Aurora and feeling visible for the first time, her worth acknowledged beyond her modest means. A nurse, voice steady with pride, described how the community collection gifted her not just a garment, but a mirror to her own compassion, a symbol of her unseen labor made tangible. Each story was a thread in a tapestry Keanu wove with unwavering faith. When my mother was turned away, her pain became mine, he shared at a community gathering, his tone resolute. I promised no one else would feel that ache. Aurora Reborn proves every soul deserves to be seen, honored, loved. For Patricia, this was more than redemption, it was rebirth. The weight of silent sorrows and old rejections lifted as she stepped into a role as hope's quiet herald. She journeyed to community centers, her soft voice weaving her story into a lifeline for others. They told me I didn't belong, she'd murmur, her words a gentle defiance, but I've learned my value lies in the life I've shaped, the love I've given, the dignity I hold. Her message struck deep, urging others to rise above a world obsessed with shallow facades, to claim the beauty within. Through her, and through Aurora, a movement took root, one that dared to redefine worth, not by what glitters, but by what endures. As the months flowed into a year, the quiet revolution sparked by Aurora Reborn swelled into a tide that reached far beyond its Milanese roots, touching the very soul of the luxury world. Keanu's vision, born from a mother's quiet hurt, began to seep into the consciousness of an industry long tethered to excess. High-end brands, stirred by the flood of heartfelt stories and the undeniable triumph of Aurora Reborn, turned inward, questioning their own gilded gates. Fashion magazines, once heralds of unattainable exclusivity, shifted their pages to champion inclusivity and the quiet power of respect. Aurora Reborn stood as a beacon at conferences on ethical commerce, its story dissected in hushed awe, while universities wove compassionate commerce into their teachings, a testament to a shift that was no longer a whisper but a roar. In cities like New York, Tokyo, and Dubai, new stores rose, each echoing the same truth: luxury isn't a price tag, it's the dignity we grant every soul who crosses our path. What began as one boutique's redemption grew into a cultural awakening, a bold reimagining of a world that could be both just and kind. Within Aurora Reborn, the change was intimate, personal. Dante, once the unyielding sentinel of its doors, emerged as a guide, his sternness softened into a warmth that welcomed all. He mentored new staff with lessons carved from his own reckoning, showing how one heart's shift could ripple through a system. His colleagues, too, shed old skins, sharing revelations of how they'd once measured worth by shallow yardsticks only to find their own lives enriched by looking deeper. For Keanu, these transformations were a balm, a fulfillment of a vow made in the dark. At a charity gala, his voice carried a quiet fire: my mother's pain lit a flame in me, not just for her, but for every soul who's felt unseen. Today, we mark not just a store's new chapter, but an era where compassion defines true luxury. Patricia, once bowed by rejection, now shone as a pillar of hope, her story a lifeline at panels and gatherings. "Doors closed on me time and again," she said in an interview, her voice steady with grace, "but each one forged my strength. Now, with my son and this community, those doors swing wide to a world that honors every human spirit." By its second anniversary, Aurora Reborn's legacy was etched in stone. Sales soared, yes, but its true wealth lay in the sanctuary it offered, a haven where belonging wrapped around every visitor, no matter their station. The community collection vanished monthly, a quiet tribute to those who served, while patrons returned not just to buy, but to share how respect had reshaped them. A young woman, her voice trembling on television, captured it. "I walked in feeling worthless, but they saw me, truly saw me. I left with a scarf and a belief in myself I'd lost." Her words echoed across millions, proof that this was no mere business, but a movement. In a stolen moment, Keanu and Patricia stood together in the boutique's reimagined heart, gazing at Milan's restless streets. "Mom," he murmured, "every closed door of judgment is now a gateway to respect." Tears gleamed in her eyes as she replied, "I was once turned away, but now I'm held by the world. That's the luxury we've built." Their words, woven with gratitude and pride, carried a timeless truth: dignity is every person's due, and real change begins with the courage to demand it. What began as a single, piercing moment of exclusion and indignity etched into the fabric of one woman's life blossomed into a movement that rippled across the globe, touching hearts and dismantling walls with quiet, unrelenting grace. The triumph of Aurora Reborn, a boutique reborn from the ashes of rejection, did not merely alter the trajectory of one business, it ignited a profound awakening. It whispered to the world that change is not just possible but inevitable when courage meets compassion. Luxury hotels, once bastions of exclusivity, began to unfurl their gilded doors, welcoming policies that embraced every soul who crossed their thresholds. High-end restaurants, with their starched linens and polished silver, softened their edges, weaving inclusivity into the very threads of their ethos. Even the secretive enclaves of exclusive clubs, long shrouded in privilege, paused to reconsider who they were keeping out and why. This was no fleeting trend, it was a seismic shift, a reimagining of what it means to belong. The corporate world, too, felt the tremor of this transformation. Training programs, once rigid with protocols and profit-driven mantras, carved out space for something deeper: empathy, respect, the tender art of seeing the person behind the transaction. Government offices, often cold and bureaucratic, stirred from their slumber, adopting measures to ensure that dignity was not a privilege doled out to the few but a right extended to all. In this swelling tide of change, Keanu Reeves emerged as a voice, a beacon carrying the story of Aurora Reborn to the far corners of the earth. He stood before vast audiences at conferences and universities, his words a gentle thunder, unraveling the tale of how one small act of exclusion had sparked a revolution. He spoke not of surface victories but of the soul's quiet upheaval, urging humanity to peer beyond the shallow veneer of status and wealth. The greatest revolution, he proclaimed at an international summit, his voice steady with conviction, is the revolution of the heart when we learn to honor each other for the simple, radiant truth of our shared humanity. His message was a clarion call, a reminder that true power lies not in division but in the courage to connect. Meanwhile, Patricia Reeves, the woman whose rejection had set this all in motion, became a lighthouse for those adrift in the shadows of marginalization. She poured her spirit into mentoring, into advocacy, into the tireless work of lifting others up. With nonprofits as her allies and community programs as her canvas, she painted a vision of empowerment, sharing her story not as a lament but as a testament to resilience. Hers was a journey that began with a closed door, a luxury boutique's refusal to see her worth, and ended with her standing as a symbol of hope, her narrative threading through cultures and classes, binding them in a shared dream of dignity. Together, mother and son wove a tapestry of change, each stitch a defiance of the world's old cruelties, each thread a promise of something better. 3 years after Aurora Reborn took its first breath, Milan became the stage for a celebration that shimmered with meaning. The boutique, now a vibrant nexus of cultural exchange and communal strength, glowed with symbols of unity and respect. People from every walk of life, customers who had found a home there, employees who had built it, leaders who had championed it, and luminaries who had witnessed its rise, gathered to honor a legacy born from exclusion and crowned with transformation. Keanu took the stage, the light catching the quiet fire in his eyes, and spoke words that seemed to hang in the air like stars. "We set out to change a business model," he said, "but what we truly changed was the way we see one another. Tonight, we lift up every person who has ever been told they didn't belong, every heart that has been rendered invisible. We have proven that when judgment gives way to respect, locked doors become portals to possibility." His voice was a bridge, spanning the chasm between what was and what could be, and in the front row, Patricia listened, her chest swelling with pride and a gratitude too vast for words. She had watched her son transmute pain into purpose, his determination unfurling into a movement that spanned continents, and she knew then that every wound, every slight, had been a stepping stone to this, a world tilting toward kindness. The night closed with music that soared through the air, a crescendo of joy and defiance, and the unveiling of a new chapter, a global fund to nurture inclusivity in luxury retail and beyond, named for Patricia Reeves. It was more than a tribute, it was a vow, an enduring promise to uphold the respect she had fought for, the humanity she had reclaimed. What had begun as a single mother's quiet stand against dismissal had grown into a chorus of voices, a symphony of souls declaring that worth is not a commodity to be measured but a flame that burns in every one of us, waiting only for the breath of recognition to blaze. This was their legacy, not just a boutique, not just a movement, but a revolution of the heart, vast and unstoppable, whispering to the world that we are all enough. Long after the celebration ended and the lights dimmed over Milan's skyline, the story of Aurora Reborn continued to ripple across the world. In small towns and bustling cities alike, people found inspiration in the tale of Keanu Reeves and his mother, Patricia Reeves, a story that reminds us that every person has the right to be seen, valued, and respected. Aurora Reborn has become more than just a store, it is a living symbol of change. It teaches us that when we look beyond appearances and treat others with kindness and empathy, we build a legacy that goes far beyond material wealth. Every open door at Aurora stands as a testament to the strength of compassion and the beauty of human connection. For Keanu and Patricia, their journey is far from over. Every day brings new challenges and fresh opportunities to reaffirm that respect and kindness can transform even the coldest of environments. Each act of welcoming, each door swung wide in warmth, is a small victory against a world that often judges by surface appearances. Their story invites us to ask ourselves, how many times have we felt unseen or misunderstood? And what might happen if we chose to see the beauty in everyone, regardless of their outward appearance? As we reflect on this moving journey, let the message of the door of respect inspire you. Remember, no matter how many doors close in life, there's always the potential to open another one that leads not to judgment, but to acceptance, not to exclusion, but to a community where every soul is celebrated for its true worth. What do you think? Have you ever experienced a moment and a closed door eventually opened to reveal unexpected kindness? How has that changed the way you see yourself or others? I'd love to hear your stories and thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart and inspired you to believe in the power of compassion and transformation, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to Motivation for Success. We are committed to bringing you more uplifting, thought-provoking stories that remind us all of the strength within and the difference one act of kindness can make. Thank you for joining us on this journey. We look forward to welcoming you back for our next video, where even more remarkable stories will inspire you to keep believing in the beauty of change. Until then, keep your doors open to respect, keep your hearts open to love, and never forget that true success begins with compassion. See you in the next video on motivation for success.